Hi everyone, Shana Tova. I'm Joel Chasnoff, host of FIDF Live. Today, we're going to be talking about Chayalim Bodedim, lone soldiers. Many of you are probably familiar with the term lone soldier. Way back when, about 20-something years ago, I myself was a lone soldier in the IDF. I left Chicago at the age of 23, volunteered to serve, and was drafted into the 188th Armored Brigade, where I served in the Golan Heights and South Lebanon. It was extremely difficult, and sometimes I regretted my decision to join, but in the end, I look back on it as one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. Today, there are more than 7,000 lone soldiers in the IDF. About half of them are volunteers from overseas, serving from more than 70 countries around the world. They leave their parents, their families, their homes, and serve without the usual support that most soldiers in the IDF have. Our job at FIDF is to make sure that even though these soldiers are lone, they never feel alone.
I decided to join the IDF to serve and protect our homeland.
It's amazing to be part of something bigger than myself.
I definitely feel the support of the FIDF. When I first drafted, I received a grant that really helped me out, especially as a lone soldier. And it was just such a nice gesture that made me feel like I have support through the end of my service, and I really can't thank the FIDF enough.
Being a lone soldier is difficult because even on the weekends when I go home, I go to an empty home, thousands of miles away from my family. My mother's a great cook, and I miss her cooking a lot, but throughout my service, the FIDF was always by my side to make me feel less alone.
Soldier isn't easy, but the FIDF does everything they can for us to make our lives easier by giving us Aaron's Day or a gift certificate, like a gift card for the supermarket as a gift for Rosh Hashanah, or our Meyuchedet, which is our flight home for a month. And I just really appreciate everything the FIDF does for us.
I haven't been home in 2 years because I'm serving in the IDF as a lone soldier. And I told my parents that I was coming home, but my 3 little sisters don't know. So I plan to surprise them. Wow, I'm excited.
Thanks to the FIDF, I got to see my family and friends after not seeing them for over 2 years.
I'm a lone soldier and I'm in Kishrei Chutz right now. I just finished mikveh alone and I'm alone here. Thank you FIDF for making me feel like I have a family here in Israel.
I don't take it for granted that you decided to come and serve, and I'm glad that I'm serving beside you.
Even though you're far from home, you're part of the IDF family, and I'm glad to be your commander.
As a soldier, I learned so much from you. I really admire your work and your courage. You just keep going, and it's incredible.
Something you might not know is that the soldiers of the Artillery Corps play a variety of roles. They fire missiles at targets, they fly unmanned aerial vehicles, collect meteorological information, and use equipment to help them determine the exact point of origin of missiles fired at Israel. We spent a day with the soldiers of the 611th Battalion in southern Israel during a drill, so we could meet the people behind this technology that saves lives.
My name is Alon. I'm a company commander in the 611 Battalion. Our mission is to detect the launching points of the mortar and rockets fired towards Israel. We are spread all around the country, all around the Israeli border, and we protect the Israeli citizens 360 degrees around. The combat fighters in my company, they detect the rockets and the mortars that are fired towards Israel, and they can tell the exact point, launching point of this mortar or rocket, and they can combine the different army forces to attack the same point. My soldiers are also trained to operate a different system, a meteorological system that provides meteorological data that accurates the shells and the rockets fired by our forces. So these two systems together give a dramatically better result of the hits during the combat, and it affects the combat and at the same time saves lives. The soldiers in my company are combined from male and female combat fighters. They come from all around the country. I have soldiers that come from overseas and are lone soldiers. I'm very proud of the teamwork. They have to work together as a team to accomplish the mission.
One of the soldiers on Captain Alon's team is Corporal Eden. She's a lone soldier from Los Angeles.
Hi, my name is Eden. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm serving in the 611 Battalion. I chose to come to Israel to serve as a lone soldier because I felt that it is my duty, as well as other Israelis that live in Israel, because I care so much for the land and I feel that this land is my home as well. Our job is to detect any incoming threats to Israel in order to protect our citizens. We can see anything in the sky, on the roads, and we're able to figure out what it is based off of a certain list of information that we're given. My job is to manage the computer, to see if there are rockets, anything in the air, to make sure that it's all clear in our land. I also have to know how to work every piece of the machinery to make sure that there's nothing wrong with any of the aspects of it, to make sure that everything's working properly so that we don't miss anything. So we slept here last night in the cold, and then we had to open our machinery, get everything working, get the electricity working, get the computers working, make sure the antenna is facing the right way. We really have to imagine that we're in a situation of urgency. There are rockets flying over us, there are missiles coming in, they're all over Israel, and so we need to be able to handle that situation in the sharpest shape possible so that we can act accordingly when the time comes.
During Operation Guardian of the Walls, this unit worked 24/7 in the effort to track thousands of missiles launched towards Israel.
For Guardian of the Walls, we were in the middle of a training exercise and we were relocated to be on Gaza. We had very little hours of sleep. We hadn't showered in a very long time or eaten food in a very long time, only canned tuna. And it was very bonding because we always had to support one another. We always had to help lift each other up because one day one person is more tired than the other. We would take turns watching the computers and helping aim the other battalions of the artillery unit. We work together with many different units that help neutralize whatever threats are coming into Israel. So we were in charge of locating those threats. Knowing I was saving lives was something that I never thought I would imagine ever. I don't even think it was something that I was able to process in the moment. In the moment there was so much happening and we were doing so many different things that you don't even realize, and then you take a step back and it's just wow.
We're at Tzomet Gitai Junction in southern Israel. As you may be able to tell, it's a very busy junction. Cars coming and going with both Israeli license plates and Palestinian license plates. Around us is a mix of Jewish villages and Palestinian villages. And so the soldiers who are on guard at this junction really have one job: to keep the peace, to make sure that everything goes as routinely as possible, that there is no, as we say in slang, balagan, no chaos. Well, earlier this year at this very junction, Gitai, a soldier from the IDF engaged in hand-to-hand combat with a terrorist. The terrorist was wielding a knife and attempting to kill this soldier. This soldier happens to be a lone soldier. She is from London, and she serves in the Pikud HaOref, the Home Front Command. She, along with her commander, was able to neutralize the threat and perhaps save a larger terrorist attack from happening. Today on FIDF Live, we are going to meet this soldier and learn more about their job here in central Israel. Sergeant Leon, thank you so much for joining us on FIDF Live. I want to jump right in. Can you tell us what was your mission that day?
That day, our mission was to ensure there was no friction between the Palestinians that pass in that junction, as well as the Israelis there. We want to make sure that everyone goes home in peace and there's no troubles. So that's our mission in the day-to-day there in the junction.
Tell me now what happened next that morning.
That morning was a regular morning, regular routine. I was there from 8 in the morning. We did the usual routine until around 11. We saw a car that had a Palestinian license plate stopped on the side. Thought it was a bit suspicious, so we went over there to check it out. We checked it out, we cleared the car had gone away. And on our way back to our guarding post, I'd noticed someone walking behind me. I'd taken my distance from him since I felt he was walking a bit close to me. I didn't feel he was suspicious, no hands in the pocket, no other suspicious signs at the time. But I said I'll keep an eye on him. I kept checking back as I was crossing the road to make sure he was keeping his distance. Just as I turned around, he'd already leaped at me with a knife in his hand, attempted to stab me multiple times. I'd responded with what we learn in Comcast's first response, is to guard with your hand, and that's exactly what I did in that moment. And then I used my gun to push him off me. We fought a little bit between us. He again was continuing to try and stab me. He'd managed to push me over, and he'd run to my commander to try and stab him as well. They'd also fought a little bit, and my commander managed to release a bullet. And straight after the bullet, he'd come running back to me from the adrenaline in his body. He had a mission, and he was going to complete that mission. So he came back to me to try and stab me again, and I'd give him one more whack with my gun, and he'd fallen to the ground, and he passed away in that moment.
So the threat is neutralized. What happens next in the aftermath of the attack?
Straight away, they pulled me into the ambulance to check me out. The knife scraped my finger, nothing big, thank goodness. So they checked me out, cleared me, and in that moment, everyone came running to me, telling me, you need to call your parents, it's going to be in the news, call your parents before they worry. I said, you know what, I'll call my parents, I'll calm them down a little bit. And I rang them up just to tell them, Mom, Dad, everything's okay, nothing serious, I was involved in a situation, you don't have to worry, ignore the news articles, I'll talk to you later when everything's calmed down.
You and your commander received a certificate of appreciation from the Ephraim Regional Brigade. How did that make you feel?
At the end of the day, I felt like I'd accomplished my mission as a lone soldier, and moving to Israel, that was the goal, to protect the citizens, to protect Israel so that others can live in peace and in happiness.
And at this ceremony where you received the certificate, your parents surprised you in the Zoom call. What was that like?
I was, as you could tell, very surprised and really happy to see them. Definitely made my day. I wasn't expecting it. Even a small moment like a Zoom call, it's really nice to see your parents' face and how proud they were of me, and I really appreciated that surprise. It definitely made my day.
You grew up in Britain and became a lone soldier. What inspired you to come join the IDF?
I'd always felt that I wanted to join the IDF. I remember specifically in my teen years, relaxing on the beach on my holidays, taking a look back at the promenade in Tel Aviv, and seeing soldiers sweating in the August heat with a big bag on their back on their way home from base. And I just thought to myself, it's unfair that I'm sitting here relaxing and enjoying the beach, and they're over there working to keep us safe.
Sergeant Leon, on behalf of everyone at FIDF Live, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And on behalf of all of Israel, thank you for what you do. You exemplify what it means to be at the ready all the time on behalf of the country.
Thank you very much.
And now we're going to meet Isaac. He's an officer, lone soldier, and former U.S. Marine, now serving as a combat photographer in the IDF. We asked him to tell us his story, selfie style, from his side of the camera.
What's up, guys? Isaac here. I'm 25 years old from Naples, Florida, and I'm now serving in the IDF as a lone soldier.
I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years as a combat photographer and did multiple military and operational missions across the Pacific. And I'm a combat photographer here in the IDF. And I wanted to give you an inside scoop, take you out into the field, show you what our job is like. So as you guys can see, this is the gear that I go out on a mission with. We got our helmet, we got our vest, knee pads. Here we have our camera, and obviously my rifle is always going to be on me. So let's gear up.
As a combat photographer, our job is to document the missions and show the world the events exactly how they are. Okay? We attach to every unit across the IDF. I'll go on these missions and tell the story out of the field. As you can see, many times our job brings us out to the front lines. We must be ready at all times because the threat is very real. Sometimes we'll be documenting a violent riot or an arrest of a terrorist. Our main mission is to prevent the next terrorist attack and to keep the civilians safe. What it means for me to serve is very, very fulfilling. There's really no words that can describe it. At the end of the day, I'm protecting my home, I'm protecting my family, I'm protecting my friends, and what it gives to me, the fulfilling feeling that gives it to my heart, is just indescribable. You know, a lot of people ask me the differences between the Marine Corps and the IDF, and I think the question should be, what are the similarities? Because there's a lot more than the differences. At the end of the day, we're fighting for the same values and for freedom and democracy. Throughout my service, I've experienced many impactful things. One of the stories that impacted me the most was the story of Amit Ben Igal. He was killed during an operation, and I found myself a day later attaching to the same unit, to the same squad even, that lost a dear brother. And we were on the search for weeks after the terrorist that killed him. This story impacted me greatly. I learned a lot from it, and I could say that it changed my life even. The things that I saw there was just indescribable, and the danger felt more real than ever. At the end of the day, I'm going into the same place where a soldier was killed a day before, and not only one time, but again and again. Day in and day out, we were doing operations at night, during the day, minimal rest. We hardly slept, we hardly ate, because we had one mission, and it's to prevent the next terrorist attack, and to stop that terrorist, and to bring justice to Amit, his family, and to the whole country. As a lone soldier, to go through a situation like that was very hard. I know that my family was worried back home, and I hardly had time to talk about it. For the most part, after every mission, I would at least send a message saying that I was okay, and just that I was hoping to be able to have a FaceTime call with them again. What gave me strength were the soldiers that were standing by my side, my commanders, the unit, and the family that I have here in Israel. What I learned through that situation is that anything can happen at any moment, and what we're out here doing is sometimes a life or death situation. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for the people that are standing behind me, and for the families, and for their safety. I would say the one thing that I'm very proud of in my service is finishing officer's course, and I'll explain why. I have 13 soldiers, men and women, under my charge, all combat soldiers that accomplish missions every day. And when I see their work coming to fruition, it just fills me with pride.
Manhunt is underway in Jerusalem following a car ramming attack just outside a popular entertainment hub, which has left an Israeli soldier in a critical condition with 11 others wounded.
We're in Jerusalem, just outside the Old City. About a year and a half ago, not far from this very spot, there was a terrorist attack. A terrorist in a car attempted to run over a group of Golani soldiers, soldiers who were on their way to the Kotel to be sworn in to the IDF. One of the soldiers who was injured is Ori, a lone soldier from San Diego. Today, Ori is an officer in training. We're going to spend some time with Ori right now and go back to the very spot where the incident happened. Ori, I want to go back to the day of the actual attack. How did that day begin?
That day was the 6th of February 2020. So we were actually at this location where we're standing right now.
And we did our tour in Jerusalem, and we actually went towards the location of the old station, and a vehicle arrived and he did a turn at the actual roundabout. Now, instead of finishing the roundabout, he actually drove on to the actual sidewalk. And I was with my head down. I had a jacket on. It was very cold. It was Jerusalem, and it was February. And I remember hearing my commander screaming, "Yo, yo, everyone move." And as soon as I hear that, I lift my head, and then the car attacks me and drives into me, making me fly back a couple of meters. I remember something wasn't right with my face, and I remembered something that wasn't right with my bones. So I checked with my fingers and my feet, and I checked to see if they moved. A couple of minutes later, the border police came, and one of the soldiers, Jasmine, she came to me and she wanted to see what the situation was with me. And she started cutting my jacket up, and she wanted to see if I have any open wounds. And essentially, a couple of minutes later, the ambulance came, and the ambulance took me to the Hadassah Ein Karim hospital, and there I was taken care of.
You're a lone soldier, your parents are far away. How did they react when receiving the news?
So it was roughly 2:30 when they actually received the news. My grandfather was actually the first one to receive the news and knew about what the situation was. And she just got home, she checks her phone, and all of a sudden sees that she has a news notification saying that there was a terrorist attack, car ramming in Jerusalem. Now, she knew I was at that night in Jerusalem. Several minutes later, my grandfather calls her and says, "Listen, Ori was in a terrorist attack. Call this number, it's the social worker, speak to her now." My mom called the social worker, and she spoke to her for a couple of minutes, and she asked her to put herself on a speaker. So the social worker put my mother on speaker, and she spoke to me and said, "Hi, Ori, listen, everything's gonna be fine. I'll try to come to Israel as fast as possible. But I just wanted to let you know that your father landed in Israel a couple of hours ago, and he's on his way to the hospital right now."
He flew to Israel to surprise you for your swearing-in ceremony, basically.
Yes, he was actually supposed to fly to somewhere else, but because of of the COVID-19 virus, he wasn't able to fly, and he chose to fly to me instead of to the actual destination. I had plentiful visits, including the FIDF, who visited me in the hospital. Even though I had a rough time in the hospital, it really built me and made me who I am today.
Given everything you went through, I have to ask, did you ever regret that you chose to come serve?
You know, I came here to draft, and I came here to serve this country. And even after 2 months of basic training and my injury, I decided to get back on my feet and continue to serve, even if it wasn't supposed to be combat. And it's been almost 2 years that I've been in the Army, and I'm happy with my service. I'm almost an officer, and I'm currently in the Officer Cadets course, and I will be finishing this upcoming October. And I'm glad that I'm still serving, and I have plentiful of years in front of me.
So Reed, this is the spot where it actually happened.
So yeah, right behind us, we have the actual spot of where it happened. We were all 40 of us gathered together.
Up there on the sidewalk?
Right there, yes, correct.
And how does it feel to be here right now?
So the feeling that I have right now is, first of all, a flashback, I'd say, in a good way. You know, I haven't been here in roughly a year and a half. I might have passed by during a bus ride, but it wasn't something that I'm physically standing on the ground.
And not just overcome it, but you're an officer's course. You've gone way past that event, and you'll be an officer in 1 month. What does that feel like, that transition?
I can't explain it to you. It's surreal, you know. The feeling's incredible. The fact that I never gave up, and like I said, I always wanted to be a commander, and I always wanted to do something that I can have an influence on my soldiers. And here I am a year and a half later, almost finishing my officer's course. I'm glad to be doing what I do.
Hello dear FIDF supporters. Tzahal, the IDF, is the people's army. Even though we are living in a technological age where we have the Merkava tanks, developed submarines, and an advanced F-35, we remember that our true strength is in our people and their values. Facing the challenges that surrounds us all around in the Middle East, the biggest strengths that enable us to win wars is and always has been our people. From the exodus from Egypt through King David, the Hashmonaim, Masada, the ghetto Warsaw fighters, and the young people who fought in 1948, and up until this very day, the spirit and values embedded in our people is our strength. The connection with you, for us, is a source of strength. no less than it is a source of strength for you. We value your support. The search and rescue delegation to Miami that took place this year is another expression of our mutual commitment. When we stand guard defending Israel, our homeland, we not only consider ourselves responsible for the entire Jewish nation's safety and security, but rather also messengers and representatives of the Jewish people from all around the world. Your children, whom despite all the challenges chose to uproot their lives leaving behind their family and friends in order to be a part of the Israeli and Jewish Defense Force defending the Jewish nation. The lone soldiers are not only soldiers who need to be taken care of or helped. They are a symbol of Zionism, emissary, pioneering, and the voluntary spirit. Of course, among us, the lone soldiers are also those with no family backing or support. In the spirit of the holidays, the Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, I would like to thank you and I wish you Chag Sameach, Shana Tova. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed our up-close look at just a few of the lone soldiers who serve voluntarily in the IDF. We are grateful to them for their service and everything they do to protect our Jewish homeland. Thank you so much for joining us on FIDF Live. I'm Joel Chasnoff, and I'll see you next time.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.